Welcome everyone to the HR Leadership Podcast, our new podcast series. Today I have Christina Cota with us. She is the principal consultant and founder of Cota Coaching and Consulting. And as I typically do, I'll turn it over, Christina, to you to start off and just kind of introduce yourself. And then we'll kind of jump into all the cool HR topics that we'll be discussing today. So tell us a little about yourself.
Perfect. Well, thanks for having me today, Aaron. I appreciate it. I've done human resources my whole career, and I've learned all of the different aspects of HR, and so through all of my different experiences and working in different types of organizations, from small to international companies, in the back of my head, I kind of always wanted to do consulting. So a few months into COVID, I lost my job and thought to myself, well, I guess there's no time like the present. So I've been consulting for about 5.5 years now. We focus on small to medium-sized organizations. Many times they don't have their own HR person, so we will act as their HR strategist. We will act as their HR operations person, and fill in all of the different areas that they're looking for extra support. I tell clients we can do all things HR. We specialize in 3 main areas. One is strategic planning. We help organizations build a people strategy that aligns with their organizational growth strategy. So many times when organizations do their strategic planning, they focus a lot on revenue. Where's the revenue coming from? How are we going to reach those revenue goals? But they don't always focus as much on the people side of that planning, because if you're 30 million today and you want to be 60 million in 3 years, your people plan is going to change significantly. So oftentimes that means we're doing organizational design work with them, getting people focused on being in the right roles for the right reasons. We also find that many times they don't have enough people to help them achieve those objectives. So helping them design what those roles are, and then helping them fill them through sourcing and recruiting. And lastly, we also do leadership development. A lot of times they don't have people ready to help them achieve those goals. They just don't have that level of leadership experience. So we'll work within those organizations to help develop their people as well.
Yeah, super important. That's sort of my area too that I like to get into, right? And that's those first line leaders, I think, they don't have that mindset shift yet, right? They're good performers, and now they're all of a sudden trying to support others in their own contributions, and they struggle with that. So
yeah, we definitely find they take these really great individual contributors and they say, you're so good at your job, now we're going to go make you a supervisor or manager. But they don't equip them with what they need in order to be successful. And so, yes, that's definitely one of the sweet spots of where we like to help out.
Yeah, definitely. So you started right after COVID. So was it, I assume, then mostly virtual? Have you done moved to any in-person stuff since then, or?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was all virtual. I helped a virtual organization. Well, they were mostly virtual. However, they had a bunch of call centers, and they had said, we need to get these call centers all virtual. And so that was kind of my initial project of getting 1,200 employees to move from 12 in-person locations to working from home. So that was definitely an interesting project. But yes, today a majority of my clients are all within about a 3-hour radius of where I live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Got it. Local. Very good. So it sounds like you stay more on the people side, right? You're not necessarily getting into, although you can help with benefits and payroll and things like that. But what have you kind of found as some of the, hot issues or big challenges that companies have? Is it sort of related to those areas, I guess, you're supporting in terms of the strategy, the people focus, and the leadership?
Yes, definitely. A lot of times these smaller businesses, they bootstrap through things and they try to figure out the HR stuff all on their own. Because I'm not exactly sure why. Actually, they just think maybe it's the easier part of the job or something. But it's pretty easy to go into some of those organizations and find opportunities to help them improve their people processes. So it really can be a variety of things, but definitely starts with infrastructure of processes. So they, as they bootstrap through things, they're winging it. They don't really have a set process, which in turn doesn't create a good candidate experience from a recruiting perspective.
Sure.
They end up ghosting candidates. They don't create good communication processes with them. They might let applications sit for months sometimes. So it's helping them develop some good processes from that perspective, and then also just not being strategic, thoughtful, and intentional about what's the employee experience that we want to provide. Oftentimes it's just happenstance.
Sure.
They don't think a lot about it intentionally.
Yeah. No, definitely. And it's, something I've learned through my work. And when it comes to culture, every company has a culture, right?
They do.
And whether you define it or not, but especially for smaller companies that are growing, if you don't define your culture, you don't decide what you want it to be, and you don't share that with the employees, particularly the ones you're hiring, then you're bringing in all these new values and life experiences and these new employees, which can be very good. But it kind of becomes Wild West, and you're basically just out in the middle of the ocean floating around and just going with the wind. And next thing you know, it's been a couple years and your culture is completely different than maybe what you wanted it to be. And maybe you get lucky, but I don't think most companies do if they're not kind of being deliberate in some of that stuff. So I'm curious, how are you defining it? How are you helping companies do that and kind of shape that culture?
I agree with everything you just said. There's so many scenarios that we walk into, and it is kind of Wild West.
Right. Sometimes
they know it, and sometimes they don't. So part of the journey is what's their organizational readiness for change? And that can also be two different things. They will sometimes be all in, yes, help us examine what do our employees actually say our culture is. Is that the same or different than what we want it to be? And then helping them on that discovery journey, finding alignment or gaps, or they have an understanding that there is some issues within the organization that usually manifests itself as accountability issues. And they might give you the lip service that they're ready, but when it comes down to it, they're actually not.
Right. How do you get in there and figure that out then? Do you have assessments that you do and stuff, or?
We do have some assessments. Honestly, Aaron, oftentimes I think it just comes from a little bit of experience of dealing with people, reading people, and understanding their personalities and profiles even. That oftentimes comes into play. But I'll be honest, there's also times where you think they're on board. They show really good indications of being ready, and until you're with them a year and you're still not seeing change or adjustments based upon that employee feedback, then you kind of get to this decision point of, are you sure you want my help? Because we're not moving the needle.
Yeah.
And that's always hard.
So taking a step back then, what usually becomes the introduction to the company? So are they reaching out to you? Are you finding them? And is there like a particular problem set that you're kind of attaching to in the beginning to start that support? Like I figure, the stuff that's most relevant to a company, I would guess, is typically going to be more on the compliance side, right? The things they have to do, right? Opposed to the to the things that they should be doing or would like to do culturally or leadership development, things like that. But maybe that's not the case. I'm curious what your experience is.
Honestly, compliance is, well, one, it's not my favorite space
Me
to
either.
be in. And I only go there if and when I have to.
Yeah.
And typically not that they know they're out of compliance. Oftentimes we uncover that, and we do an initial needs analysis where we deep dive with them for up to half a day and ask a lot of questions about their people practices, their infrastructure, who do they think they are as an organization, how would they describe their culture, and so forth. But yeah, typically we're uncovering some areas that are out of compliance. And again, because they don't have a knowledgeable or experienced HR person on their team, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And you can't always expect that business owner to know everything about every aspect of the business. If they're smart and emotionally intelligent, they know enough to say, I can't be an expert in all of these areas, and that's why I need you to walk alongside me in this journey to figure out what are our gaps. And yes, some of that is compliance. But more importantly for us, we try to go way beyond that and say being out of compliance is typically a byproduct of lacking in HR infrastructure and processes. So let's help you get that groundwork built. And then we keep, building even more off of that to create a great employee experience and helping them vision out what is that? What do we want for that employee experience here? And that's the more fun work, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. So but do they realize, I guess, so you're dealing with executives, and typically these companies that are coming to you or that you're finding, they don't have HR, right? They don't have an HR person or definitely not like a senior experienced kind of HR person. Maybe they've got someone helping with some recruiting or other, related things. Obviously, I would assume they've got benefits and things for their healthcare and stuff for their employees. But I'm just curious if there's like a theme or a trend on what is that initial problem that they're identifying where they realize, oh, I need to invest money or time into, this HR thing.
Yeah, I think that, I guess if I look backwards, a good majority of where we're getting clients is referrals from some other types of business partners. So, for example, there's a couple of financial accounting firms that we're really well connected with and collaborate with often, and they see the financial impact of some of the organizational issues that those companies are having. And then that's where they're saying, oh, you've been without a operations leader for 6 months. That's got to be impacting your bottom line, right? And then he would refer them to us and say, hey, I think Christina can help you with that. So it would be recruiting related referrals. That is typically one of their issues. It might also be a turnover issue. So, some of those other business partners might be seeing turnover issues, and they would refer us over to say, hey, can you come help us figure out the source of our turnover issues? And then again, then you're digging into the employee sentiment and employee engagement and looking for the source of concern at that point. So those are definitely some of the main problems. I would also say compensation and lack of a compensation infrastructure. So, and it might be a byproduct of some of those other issues too, that, hey, we're experiencing a lot of turnover, and then we uncovered that there is some compensation issues, or they don't have a compensation infrastructure at all. So we'll help them develop that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, compensation is all about distributive justice or, fairness and compensation. Does the employee feel that they're compensated fairly for the work they're doing? And then procedural justice is, that the processes and decisions are made. And so, if one employee is looking at their colleagues and they all talk, right, they find out what each other's making and they start feeling unfair, that's going to be one of the biggest drivers of turnover. And then that's how they see it probably, right? So you come into these organizations and do many of them or any of them ever have surveys that they're already doing, like a Gallup or any type of top workplaces, best workplaces kind of thing? Or is that all kind of new and you're just digging in from the start, doing interviews and assessments or whatever?
What I found so far is most of these smaller organizations under 100 employees aren't doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think sometimes they think it's too expensive, or sometimes it's you don't want to know the answer, so you don't ask the question, which is unfortunate, right?
I've seen that too. It's crazy, right? It's like, I had an analogy. I was talking to an executive about that. He's like, well, I'd just rather not know. It's like, so if you got a booger hanging out of your nose all day, you'd rather people not tell you? Like, I mean, how do you not want to know that? It's just, you want to just hide in your cave or something. It's just, that's crazy to me, but they do this.
Right.
It's a thought. So anyways.
And then how does that manifest even deeper throughout the organization? So if you don't want to know, my guess would be then you're also not giving people feedback. You're not having tough conversations.
Yep.
And then those things continue to exacerbate, and you've got utter chaos under the umbrella of your organization.
Yeah, that's a more overarching value of lack of transparency, right? I don't want to know what's really going on. So yeah, you're not going to probably be sharing good feedback and information. People don't have rationale. They're losing autonomy and feeling controlled, and yeah, that's a slippery slope. So what are kind of your best go-tos then for getting in to figure that out? I mean, you probably meet the leads and you have a discussion. You can start isolating some stuff pretty quickly, I would guess. But I don't know. If it were me, I'd want at least some reassurance. Go around, do some interviews or something else. Is there something that you're doing for that?
Typically, we'll start with a basic survey, and I try to do them somewhat organically, just focused on that organization versus trying to bring in 100 question Gallup or something like that.
Yeah,
those are great, and they definitely have value in larger organizations for sure, and more. At the same time, tailoring it, I think, is one of the places that these businesses feel that they're getting that special treatment. We're tailoring this for you. This is specifically focused on your organization, what you think your pain points are. As long as you're open to and aware that sometimes there's stuff that you don't see because you're in it every day. So, starting with that more basic survey to get some of the high level feel for those pain points. And then, yes, taking that a step further and doing some employee focus groups, mixing some of those focus groups up so that you don't get, a singular voice. If you only talk to the sales group, you may get a single voice because they feed off of each other. Oh, yeah. So you want to be careful and strategic, of course, about how you arrange those. At the same time, there's also ones that you want to do one-on-one based upon some of the information that you're gathering and get more specific details and information, particularly if you've uncovered some toxicity or you've uncovered bigger legal issues. There's certainly times where you have to dig deeper into that. I don't come across that a whole lot, but it's happened. So, and then being able to bring that back to the owners or leaders and say, here's what we uncovered, trying to keep as much anonymity for the employee base as possible. But are you guys willing to address these issues? And if so, let's first start with what do you think we should do? And then we can give you some more ideas from a best practice standpoint.
Yeah. No, I've definitely found when things are really bad and things are, toxic or, just very negative, having someone independent come in, usually the employees are just ready to unload, right? Yes. They're just dying to have someone to talk to or vent. I know that's how, in fact, because I was with a company at one point where it was amazing. And then, some contracts turned and things started getting really bad. And after, 4 or 5 months, someone comes in and everyone was just, unloading. Happy to have someone to actually talk to. And you can get a lot of good information on that. But yeah, so what do you typically find in those things? It sounds like you got the recruiting, the turnover obviously are sort of the entry point sometimes for how companies are realizing, right, that they have these issues or need the support. Are there any trends you find in those surveys or focus groups?
A couple of trends for sure in the last year or two as we've been on this journey with a couple of clients in particular is employees not seeing their growth and development opportunities. Okay. Sometimes when you're in that smaller, to medium-sized organization, some of those promotional opportunities are limited. So you have to take advantage of what's the skill development opportunities that people have. How do we help them see that and understand that and have a great employee experience along the way such that they continue to stay engaged? So we've done things like skill development matrix. I have a terrible time with that word. Matrices, thank you. Yeah. So that we can also visually show that here's what a level one, we work a lot in manufacturing, for example. So here's what a level one production employee would be responsible for. If you want to get to a level two, here's the extra skills that we need you to learn. Being a level two means that 1, you get a title change, 2, you've got a little higher responsibility, and 3, you get a little more pay. And helping them connect that both mentally and visually has made a really big impact on these organizations. It's really fun when you go back and you do an engagement survey with them a year later, for example, and this actually happened. We asked them, what is the top thing that you appreciated the most that the company did this last year? And for the number one answer of them to say the skill matrix and the pay increase matrix that went along with that was the best thing that they did for us this year. It's like, win.
Yeah. No, that's great. So and growth, the research shows growth, right? Feeling growth. For one, it's part of competence, is a basic psychological need. But growth is also one of the most related or best predictors of intention to stay, intention to go above and beyond in their work and all that stuff. And then I would imagine that is also filling another gap probably, which is on the recruiting side, because it's helping, explain and formalize job descriptions and stuff that they can better use when they're sourcing and going out and looking for people. Are most of the companies you're working with growing and doing a lot of hiring, or maybe it's also because of the turnover, I guess?
It's definitely been this year's probably been a little slower growth than it's been in the past for most of my clients and colleagues. But it's still a nice steady growth. Yeah. Versus, exponentially growing and doubling and tripling, and people just didn't have as much of that this year. Yeah. No, for sure. Well, but at least they're not
laying off, right? You see it on the tech companies, a lot of layoffs and stuff.
That's one of the wonderful things about the area that I live in. It seems no matter what craziness might be going on in other areas, we stay pretty steady. So I think we're very lucky here.
Somewhat insulated from some of the craziness.
Yeah.
That's good. But I mean, there's always going to be manufacturing. And I mean, I think they are trying to bring more of that back into the United States. Quality's often better. Right? Built in the USA kind of stuff. Well, right. That's good. So growth growth leads into procedural justice as well, which is that process, right? If they understand what their growth path looks like, then they can better understand also how these decisions are being made about their progression. And they can also probably take ownership of it too, right? Because now they understand what's next. They can help guide their own, because you can't expect the company just to basically handhold every employee through that process. You give them the information they need on what the expectations are, and then let them be proactive and take ownership of moving through that process.
I think some of that comes back to purpose and helping employees connect what they do in the greater good. And that's definitely another opportunity we have found the past few years. Say I make parts for a tractor. Well, there's a lot of times where the employees don't really know the big picture of what they're doing in that manufacturing process and how that's impacted down the line, so to speak. So helping them create a better understanding of purpose. Hey, when you build this gear for this tractor, and again, we do this visually. Here's the gear that you're building. Here's the tractor that it's going in. The tractor's going onto this farmer's land, and it's producing this corn. I help produce corn that feeds America.
Sure.
And the impact of helping employees connect what they do every day with a bigger purpose, again, we've seen those engagement numbers increase by something as simple as that. And there's just times where companies they're just too busy focused on the revenue or bringing in new clients and things like that. They're not always thinking about what's the employee connection to what we do and why we do it.
Right. Yeah. No, in our assessment, we call that meaningful work, right? And it's huge. In the government space, we usually find that that's actually typically higher. Because you have a lot of veterans that are coming from the Navy, and in my case, I support the Navy. So they come from the Navy. They've already been working on the system, so they have a little better understanding of how their work is, linking to that. But you start getting 3, 4, 5 levels removed from the actual user, and you can easily forget that. How do you? So is that like mission vision statements? Is it? It sounds like vignettes. You're doing like stories. Are you like investing, making cool videos and stuff? And like the way you're describing it, I almost picture like this kind of almost commercial kind of video where, the gear kind of flies into the tractor, and then you zoom out and you see the farmer driving and all that.
If a company had a budget for that, I think that would be ideal. They oftentimes see that as a little too pricey and maybe a little too flashy, but at the very least, it's pamphlets or flyers or electronic visuals. My guess would be now with AI, we could probably make that stuff happen cheaper than we would have even 2 years ago. So thanks for the idea. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, there you go. So I worked with a company. So when we rolled out a cultural initiative back at a prior company, we teamed up with a company called Avenue. I think it was Avenue, AVANOO. I don't think they exist anymore. This guy, Daniel, who started, was this amazing guy. and he ended up, I think, selling it. Now he's doing like cryptocurrency or something. But essentially what they did was they created these little micro learning, like I can't call them courses. They were more they were videos, right? Stories. And it was all story based. And so what we ended up doing, and it was a little bit pricey, but I think, like you said, with AI, and there's probably ways to do it a lot cheaper now. But we worked with them, and they had, professional writers and stuff. And so we would have some of our employees or some of our, lower mid-level leaders, they would talk with their writer, explain some kind of story that was relevant to a cultural value, because this was all focused on our cultural values. But then they would actually turn it into this like narrated story with with screenshots or videos, and they had all these stock images and stuff. But we actually took footage from our own work as well, though we weren't doing manufacturing, so we didn't have as much cool. It's not that cool to just take videos of people sitting in a cubicle typing on their computer. But if you're in a manufacturing floor, I think you could have some pretty cool videos. But then it just became these little micro learning things and they were doing training on it too, teaching people through once a day you go in for 3 minutes, you watch this little 2 to 3 minute video. But yeah, anyways, it made me think of that as, those kind of things can be really powerful. It's helping people understand that connection to what they're doing, so they don't just feel like they're just, a cog in a wheel spinning around. Right?
Yeah.
No, that's really good. And it sounds like you've seen the benefits of it too, right? Through being able to do those engagement surveys.
Yes. And, like you said, both with the current employee base, but also using that as a recruiting tool to help people understand, here's what it's like to work here, and here is what the purpose of what we do and why we do it. I think the most recent statistics, particularly of our younger generations, it's one of the top 3 things that they need to have in their work is purpose. Sure. So if we're not taking on that responsibility of helping connect that on their behalf, we're doing the company a disservice and them as well, because it would probably then again manifest itself in turnover if we're not doing a good job of that.
Right. Yeah, there's so many pieces of that, right? Is you have to, persuade the talent in, right? Through that. But then you got to make sure that they stick around afterwards. And if you're painting a picture or not painting a picture at all, that doesn't end up being what they experience when they actually get to the job.
Yes.
That's what probably, I got to think, one of the top reasons for turnover, at least in the first, 60, 90 days. I imagine people get in there and realize, wait, this isn't anything like I thought it was going to be. And if you don't tell the story, then they're just going to make up their own expectations. And that's one of the
more strategic projects we've done with a little bit larger organization is evaluating that entire life cycle from the candidate experience all the way through the exit of the employee, so to speak. So checking in, how did we present the company and the job? Is that what you experienced when you came here? Then asking employees after they've been there a year to 3 year time frame again, is what we promised you actually coming to fruition? And then doing continuous check-ins, because there's an Andy Stanley video that I use sometimes in my training, and he talks about conflict typically occurs when people experience something different than they expect. You've got conflict in between that. So you've got these interested candidates who they have some expectations based upon what the recruiter said, and then is that what they actually experience when they come into the organization? When you have misalignment of that, that's when you've got your early turnover. So we typically then work with the organization to say, we either have a recruiting issue or we have an onboarding issue in that scenario. If they're leaving before that 1 year time point, we created expectations that they didn't experience. We need to figure out what's going on.
Sure. But then also, if the experience is part of the issue, you can't just necessarily set their expectations of this is going to be pretty bad when you get here. Our leaders aren't very good. So now your expectations are aligned.
Yeah. Well, then we have a little internal work to do with those leaders. And I don't know about you, but that's definitely one of the spots where it's almost the easiest thing that managers miss is what is that first day experience you're providing? What's the first week experience that you're providing? That's not an HR issue. That's a leader issue. And a lack of owning that experience. So we've dedicated a lot more time to helping those leaders provide a great new employee experience, because the stats and science would show us that we have 44 days was one of the most recent stat that I saw. You have 45 days to get that person fully on board be able to stay at least a 3-year time period.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, and you can certainly build certain process and standards to help, because leaders can have good intentions, but they're busy. They get pulled in lots of directions. There's an exercise we do in our feedback course. We do a workshop on feedback, and we do this exercise in the beginning. And I guess I'm spoiling it for anyone that's listening to this that ends up doing this workshop, because hopefully we get to do it with more people. But we pick 3 people, we take them out of the rooms, and then we bring them back in one at a time. And everyone in the room is pretending to be an employee, right? And so we're essentially simulating a new hire coming into the organization. Okay. And the goal is to show different types of feedback and how it hits. So the first person you bring in, you give them a task. Like, they got to walk around the room in a certain direction, a certain way, and they get no feedback. And then the second person comes in and they get only negative feedback, right? And then the third one comes in and you give them only positive feedback. And, it's always the positive feedback person gets the task done faster. But also, and I almost feel bad sometimes, but the first 2 people in particular, the first one, you bring them in, you tell them, you give them a little bit of hey, we're pretending you're a new employee. You have a task you have to do. It has to do with how you walk around this room. I'll even give you that. But, and then I pretend hey, but I'm really busy, but I'm here for you. I'll help you, whatever, just let me know. But you're an expert. You got this, go in and just get it done. And then they just kind of sit there wandering around. And sometimes they'll go up to other people and they'll ask them who they are and ask them for help. And then, we tell the group, and they're like, no, you're busy too, and you don't know their job. So you just kind of be friendly and just wish them good luck or something. But they start to get really frustrated. But not just in feedback, that's I think that happens a lot where the leaders have good intentions, but they're busy.
Yes.
And they don't have these process or any kind of standards institutionalized into their organization. And so these new hires just kind of end up feeling like they're floating around, and they got to kind of learn from hard knocks, what to do, what not to do.
Yeah.
And so when you meet with people throughout, do you call those stay interviews? Or?
Yeah, we do stay interviews as well, just to... Depending upon what we see in some of those initial surveys, is there a pocket of folks that are more at risk? And, just recently, I would say I definitely see that 3 to 5 year range is the more at risk range. And we have to dig in deeper and figure out why.
Sure.
And a lot of times what we see is we work so hard to bring people in the door, And then they get to a level of proving themselves.
Right.
And the trust level increases, and then we take our eyes off the ball.
Yeah, they're ready for their promotion and they don't get it.
It's like the good kid versus the bad kid. You ignore the good kid a little bit more because you know that they're a good kid and you trust that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and they're following the rules. And so you just focus on correcting
the problems.
The problems, and the 20% of the population that are the problem population end up taking 80% of the time, and you're forgetting to thank these other 80% over here that are doing what they're supposed to be doing and continuing to celebrate those wins.
Yeah, no, I was just, before you even said, I was just thinking 80-20 rule, right? It applies in so many situations, but in this case, it's, usually 20% of the population take 80% of our time. And those aren't the ones you should be spending time with, right? You want to spend your time with the people who are going to stick around and who are doing a great job and helping them do even better.
Yes.
As opposed to trying to turn around the few that aren't necessarily working or working out.
That's definitely one of the spots where we spend time being focused on core values. And, we preach it to our clients. You have to hire to them, you coach to them, and you got to be willing to fire to them. And if this 20% continues to float around for years, then you're not really upholding your own core values. And it's a little uncomfortable discussion from time to time, but I tell them, I guarantee you, once you finally make that decision, you will sit back and say, geez, I wish I would have done that a long time ago. I've never had anybody tell me that they have not thought that.
Right. How do you help the leadership then kind of live those values? Because, a value that doesn't get defined well, or, you got to have from my experience and what I do with organizations is we define, we call them principles or we always and nevers, right? This is behaviors essentially. That's for me where the rubber meets the road. Is you can have values, that's great. Adam Grant would even say, all companies basically have the same 5 values when it really comes down to it. So whatever you call those, right, it's all kind of the same stuff, but where the rubber meets the road is the behavior associated with that. And some leaders are good at communicating that and demonstrating it and living it, but as you grow, you don't have that same touch, and you got to rely on the next level down to live and demonstrate and reinforce that. So anyways, I'm curious, what do you do in addition to just documenting core values to make sure they're not just a poster on the wall that get talked about in onboarding and forgotten day 2?
We actually just did a workshop with a client yesterday.
Nice.
So we'll bring their leader team together, and I'll push them pretty hard on what does this look like here. Let's talk about behaviors. You have respect as one of your core values. How do I know? How will I know that I'm meeting your expectations regarding respect? Give me some examples. This is actually a construction company. What does this look like on the job site? Oh, okay. When you can help them get it super practical, that's when things really start to click.
Yep.
So, on the job site, we're not yelling at each other when the project goes wrong.
Yep.
We're able to have meaningful discussions instead. It really pushing them on that. It's kind of fun. They'll oftentimes start somewhat fluffy and high level, and I'm like, it's not clear enough yet. We're not clear enough yet.
Yeah.
So I actually love doing that with organizations.
Yeah. No, that's super fun. You get to the cool stories too. And then you got to translate it though to actually communicating that down, because once you've set expectations like that with that level of detail and stories, then it can become, true part of the culture, because the culture is your vocabulary. It's the stories, it's the vignettes, all of those things, so that you can then have better conversations. Because what I tell leaders is, it's a lot easier to have a conversation about a performance issue or something, a behavioral issue, when you've already set that expectation and you can go back to that very clearly. That's why people, I think, one of the main reasons they procrastinate and they avoid those conversations is they've never really actually clearly set the expectation in the first place.
Yeah.
Sure.
We'll help them then develop methods and materials to include in their recruiting processes. It might also be including a few of those things on their website to set that expectation with candidates early.
Sure.
It's also an expectations document that goes alongside a job description that as that person is onboarded, we're going through the technical parts of the job requirements, and we're going through, here's what we expect from a behaviors perspective.
Right.
And we include interview questions to determine how would they handle some of these situations? Would they actually behave in the way that we're expecting? So integrating that into their people processes is definitely one of our specialties, because again, you can put core values on a wall, but it doesn't mean that people are actually living by them. And then integrating those things also into your performance evaluation process.
Right, for sure. And ideally having a performance process or a performance management process that isn't just talking to somebody once a year. Nobody likes to hear that they're having issues 9 months ago.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So in the recruiting side, then do you help I got to imagine, like, and this is how I was when I first got into leadership roles, is you usually see these unstructured interviews. They're not doing behavioral questions or scenario type questions. It's all very just gut and, personal feel and stuff, which can work if, you get lucky, I guess, but it's not a good predictive way to hire. Have you seen that in some of these organizations, having to bring in and do recruiting training and some of that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. A lot of times that's one of our first phases that we'll work on with them is, what's your recruiting process? Let's help you with your infrastructure, and asking better questions is definitely a key piece of that. And oftentimes they'll say, wow, I never thought of that before and the impact that could have. Yeah. So, that is definitely one of the early things that we try to do with them, like I said. And then we actually also do a recruiting boot camp. So we offer a 2 half-day boot camp. Right now it's in person, but we're working towards online options for 2026. But in some of these small organizations, again, where people have just bootstrapped through, they think they know what they're doing with interviewing and recruiting people. But a lot of times they're just posting and praying and making gut hiring decisions. And so we help them develop a structured process. We give them tools and templates to do it well. We make them practice so we can help them increase their confidence level in it. And then we offer 6 coaching calls afterwards as well to do check-ins on them. Because you can send somebody to a training. It doesn't mean that they're gonna...
No. Yeah. That's why I built ProActor, right? Is you got to have the reinforcement and the practice.
Yes. So that's kind of our personal touch to that coaching aspect of it, to make sure, how successful have you been so far? How can we help you more? Do you need another tool, or is it just a little more practice? How is this getting embraced within your organization? Because again, they have to be able to take that back and influence others to use it as well. And that's sometimes part of the issue as well, is they don't feel like they have the influence to make some of those changes or to implement that. Yeah. So there's even times where we've, communicated back with the owner or leader to say, here's an area that we have challenged your recruiter so that they can help improve your processes. Is there any additional areas that you would have questions or concerns that we can help support and coach? And no training that you ever send any employee to is that trainer or facilitator coming back and asking that leader any of those questions.
Yeah. You got to have the reinforcement. That's great. Well, no, this has been great. We're at time now, so I'd love to keep going and chatting. It's hitting all the cool topics, but I really appreciate your time. Is there anything maybe just to kind of how people can get in touch with you if they want to work with you, email, website, any of that kind of stuff you want to plug? Just to wrap up.
Bet. CotaConsulting.net, COTA. And my email is Christina@CotaConsulting.net. So.
Very good. Well, good. Well, again, I really appreciate your time. This was awesome. Hopefully helpful for people to hear all these cool things.
Yeah, it's been fun. Appreciate your time as well.
Yeah.